On today's video, we are looking at the latest update to ASICS, it's ASICS flagship stability shoe. This is ASICS top-of-the-line, newest version of their wildly popular stability line, the Kayano. My friends, this is the ASICS GEL-Kayano 32. Before we get started, I do just want to say that this video is in partnership with my friends over at Roadrunner Sports. Now, Roadrunner Sports was good enough to send me this pair of the GEL-Kayano 32 for the purpose of review. However, they haven't told me what to say. They don't have any editorial privileges, and all the thoughts and opinions are my own. But that said, if you want to pick up a pair of the new ASICS GEL-Kayano 32, you can head on over to Roadrunner Sports and pick up a pair for yourself for $165. And of course, I will place a link in the show notes below in case you want to pick up a pair for yourself. So I know I already told you that this is ASICS top-of-the-line stability shoe, and that is true. However, if you are a neutral runner, you don't need stability, or you don't technically need stability, but occasionally, you just like a little extra support, maybe late in those long runs when you start getting tired, maybe your gait starts to get a little sloppy, you might start to pronate just a little more. That's where a shoe like the GEL-Kayano really excels. So at least in my opinion, well, it's not just my opinion, it's also ASICS' opinion, the GEL-Kayano is going to work well for neutral people. And I do say that it's ASICS' opinion also, because if you go to their website, they do say that this is for neutral and overpronators. And remember, overpronation is where our foot kind of rolls in excessively as we're coming through our gait cycle. Now, everybody pronates. It's important to remember that. Pronation is a normal part of our running motion. Overpronation, maybe not. But that's where the GEL-Kayano can step in and help if you need it. But we'll get more into the stability elements in just a second. But first, the ASICS GEL-Kayano, I'm going to start with the biggest change this year, but the ASICS GEL-Kayano now has 40 in the heel, 32 in the forefoot for an 8mm drop. That's right. Did I hear a collective gasp? Yes. The ASICS GEL-Kayano is now an 8mm drop. ASICS has dropped it from a 10mm drop to an 8mm drop. I guess to remain, more current, more in line with industry norms. It does seem that those super high stack height shoes are beginning to come down just a little bit. And the GEL-Kayano 32 is following that trend. We now have an extra 2mm of stack height in the forefoot than we did over the ASICS GEL-Kayano 31 last year. So if you are not a fan of a 10mm drop and an 8mm drop is just a little easier to swallow, then you should probably take a look at the GEL-Kayano 32. But let's talk about the shoe itself, and we'll talk about some changes and just dig into the shoe overall. I'm going to hold this up. ASICS has got a very padded heel collar here, which really hasn't changed. The GEL-Kayano it's 40mm, so I would call this a max stack daily trainer. And because of that, we do have a lot of padding around the heel collar. Look, I often think that, do we need as much padding as these shoe companies tend to put into these shoes? And the answer is probably no. However, with that said, it is a very comfortable feeling to put your foot into a shoe that has a lot of padding around the heel collar. And the GEL-Kayano 32 does give my ankle like a nice hug as it goes in. That padding just kind of locks me in place. If we come to the heel counter, yeah, this hasn't changed. We have a very rigid heel counter here on the back that is going to contribute to just locking that heel down along with all that padding. While we're talking about the heel collar, let me just pull out my pair of the Kayano 31 and hold that up. Can you see we have that knit bit right on the top of the 31? It's almost like the padding of the 31 is recessed behind that knit lip. And ASICS has done away with that on the 32. I'm not sure what I think about that. It's probably a weight savings thing, and we'll get to the weight savings in just a second. But I do think that that lip of knit just around the heel collar, I think that looks a little more premium. And as we are attaching the word premium to the Kayano, I don't know, I just like how that looks a little more. But it doesn't matter because it's gone. What we've got is a more traditional heel collar here. What we haven't gone away with though is this knit heel pull right on the back just to help putting the shoe on, just making your life just a little bit easier. The GEL-Kayano 32 is offering a new engineered mesh upper. By new, I mean new and improved. According to ASICS, it offers just a little bit better fit, it has a little more stretch to it, and it has enhanced breathability. So of course, with that enhanced breathability, I did kind of feel it like this, and then I took my pair of the 31s, and I also kind of felt it like that, and I thought to myself, oh, no, they feel very similar. I put my hand inside, I felt that toe box just to see if I could feel if it was any thinner on the 32 compared with the 31. And I tell you, yeah, maybe the 32 is just slightly thinner up here, but I don't know. It didn't seem enough to say that it has enhanced breathability on the 32. But then as I looked a little past the toe box area, I did notice that we have some extra drilled holes in the side of the Kayano 32. There isn't anything like that on the 31. So because of that, yeah, I concur. The ASICS GEL-Kayano 32 does have enhanced breathability. There are simply more holes in the 32 to help the shoe breathe better. I am always here for that. Now, with that said, summer is coming and this is a big shoe. It's a heavily padded shoe. It is a max cushion daily trainer. So I know that if I take this shoe out in the middle of summer, my feet are going to feel maybe just a little warm, but that's not the point, is it? The point is that it has improved over last year. And I would agree with that. The tongue is something that I am definitely here for. The tongue on the Kayano 32 is epic. Like, just looking at it, I don't want them to change it next year. I remember saying how much I liked how thin the tongue was on the GEL-Kayano 31. And I still stand by that. For a daily trainer, yeah, it's pretty thin. However, it's even better on the GEL-Kayano 32 because it's even thinner. Not only is it thinner, we have increased breathability coming down the center of the tongue. And it looks like the padding has had a little more thought put into it. So basically, there is not much padding here on the top, and I mean to say there is enough padding there on the top. I didn't get any lace bite across the top of my foot, but there is more padding toward the sides of the tongue, which again, just like this padding coming around your heel collar, is going to give your foot a nice locked in feeling when the shoe is actually tied on. Of course, we do have this tongue pull right on the front, and the tongue is gusseted. Yeah, good job, ASICS. That's a solid tongue. Okay, coming down to the midsole, this is another change that ASICS has made. This year we have Flight Foam Blast Plus. Last year in the GEL-Kayano 31, we had Flight Foam Blast Plus Eco. Now, what does that mean as far as ride goes? Well, you know what? When I took the durometer, I have the durometer right here. I was just testing these before I turned on the camera, and the durometer readings are almost identical. Like, if I hadn't gone for a run in either of these shoes, I would have used the durometer and tested it and just said, it's the same feeling. However, the ride in the GEL-Kayano 32 is just slightly firmer than that of the GEL-Kayano 31. Not by much. Naturally, I did put one shoe on each foot just to see if I could feel a difference, and I'm pretty sure I think I could. Now, don't get me wrong, the ride of the GEL-Kayano 32 is certainly not firm. It's a very pleasant ride. It's not plush, but it's not firm. You know, it's right in that Goldilocks zone where we want it. If we come down to the outsole, you can see we've got a good amount of outsole rubber coverage here. ASICS is using their hybrid ASICS grip, and yeah, you know what? It works. We've got AHA Plus here on the heel just for a little extra protection, and yeah, it's no surprising. I am seeing a little bit of wear here on my lateral heel, but I say it's not surprising because it's not surprising to me. If you've seen any other of my videos, it's not surprising to you either. This lateral heel area is where I, and I think maybe most people touch down, at least most heel strikers. You know, we tend to land on that lateral heel edge and then roll through, pronate slightly and then off. So it's right in line with what I expect to see. As far as grip goes, honestly, I'm not the best person to talk about grip of a shoe. I don't often run in the rain, and in my testing of the GEL-Kayano 32, I didn't get a chance to run in the rain. It doesn't rain that often where I live, but I can tell you that on dry cement, it sticks fine. And you know, when I'm out running and I see a puddle, I always try to go through the puddle just to wet the bottom of my shoe and see how it sticks. But I recognize that isn't a good test of wet grippiness, because I really didn't notice any difference between when it was dry and when I stepped in a puddle and then continued to run on. So let's talk about those stability elements that actually makes this different. Remember, this is a max cushion daily trainer, but it is designed with those stability elements to help the runner that overpronates just slightly. And again, let me show you from the bottom. We have a very wide base. Now, a lot of shoes have a wide base, and this is just going to introduce a little inherent stability, right? Nothing that is just specific to a stability shoe. We're going to see neutral shoes with a wide base, but that's where we're going to start. We've also got higher sidewalls, especially here on the medial side and around the heel. That is going to keep your foot centered over the top of the shoe. And then we've got this. It's ASICS 4D guidance system. And I actually really like this 4D guidance system. And the reason is that this is the reason that neutral runners can also really appreciate the GEL-Kayano. And I think this 4D guidance system has been around maybe 3 years, but it's back again in the 32, and obviously it's working because they've kept it for 3 years. But basically, this is a softer piece of foam compared with the surrounding Flight Foam Blast Plus. And ultimately, it's an adaptive system. So because it's softer, it's a little more responsive. When you compress it, it's kind of going to bounce you back out of pronation. Does that make sense? So if you don't pronate very much, you're not going to be compressing that and being kind of sent back to a normal gait. But if you do, or perhaps if you're like me and you kind of get sloppy, maybe you start to pronate a little more after you've been running for a couple hours, this really isn't going to bother you when you don't need it, but it's there as like a safety net if you do need it. So when I'm late in a long run and I'm getting tired and I know I'm starting to pronate more, that is where the 4D guidance system is going to swoop in and save the day. Keep me running as efficiently as I can. Now, one more thing that just makes this shoe comfortable, and I'm not seeing like any advertisement for it around the shoe, but the GEL-Kayano 32 is a GEL-Kayano 32. That means we have the pure gel here in the heel, and basically that's just going to add a little bit more comfort, a little bit of added softness, so when your heel strikes the ground, it's like landing on a pillow to protect your whole body. Anyway, It works, and it's part of the name, so I guess they have to put it in there. Guys, I would love to hear from you. Have you run in any of the Gel-Kayanos throughout the years? What do you think about them lowering the drop to an 8mm drop with the Gel-Kayano 32? Does that make you more or less likely want to pick up a pair for yourself? Drop a comment and let me know. But for now, it's Matt B. This has been my review of the ASICS Gel-Kayano 32. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.